محمد.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, the sure reality. What is the sure reality, and what will make you realize what the sure reality is? The Thamud and Ad people branded as falls the stunning calamity, but the Thamud, they were destroyed by a terrible storm of thunder and lightning, and the Ad, they were destroyed by a furious wind exceedingly violent. He made it rain against them in 7 nights and 8 days in succession, so that you could see the whole people lying prostrate in its path as if they had been roots of the hollow palm trees tumbled down. Then do you see any of them left surviving? And Pharaoh, and those before him, and the cities overthrown, committed habitable sin, and disobeyed each messenger their Lord, so he punished them with an abundant penalty. When the water of Noah's flood overflowed beyond the limits, carried you, mankind, in the floating ark, that we might make a message unto you, that ears should hear the tale and retain its memory, should bear its lesson in remembrance. Then, when one blast and a sounded on a trumpet, and the earth is moved, and the mountains that they are crushed to powder in one stroke, on that day shall the great event come to pass. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صل على محمد وآل محمد.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Thank you very much, brother and sister, for the wonderful recitation and translation of the Holy Quran. Brothers and sisters, before we move on to tonight's lecture, I'd just like to remind you all that the MYC will be hosting its annual winter retreat January 6th to the 8th for ages 18 and over. So if you're interested in registration for the retreat or further information, you can visit the MYC website at myconline.org, and you can find further information over there. Brothers and sisters, alhamdulillah, we are glad to have joining us today Sayyid Muhammad al-Sharar, who will be speaking to us about the life of Imam Hassan al-Askari alayhi salam, and inshallah we'll be able to take lessons and teachings away from this lecture. So without further ado, let's welcome him with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Before we begin, I just wanted to acknowledge that how grateful and thankful I am to see every single one of you today. Despite all the odds and the obstacles, it's very cold. It's dark. You know, as the days progress, they become shorter. And it's Friday night. And so you had absolutely every reason to stay home. Yet you decided to come by and attend a program in remembrance to your 11th Imam, Imam Hassan al-Askari alayhi as-salam. And that enthusiasm and that drive really influences many other brothers and sisters. And there are those that attend on a regular basis, and there are those that attend simply because the topic was of great interest. And so nonetheless, whether you came because you found the subject interesting or you come on a general basis, it's very beautiful and great and mesmerizing to see such a lovely congregation motivated to learn more about their faith. So without further ado, let's begin with that after a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. In preparation for tonight's program, a thought came to mind, which was, why not, generally speaking, stick to the traditional route in highlighting the martyrdom of Imam Hassan al-Askari alayhi salam. Because these weeks, they are the weeks that highlight the martyrdom. Imam Hassan al-Askari was martyred during these days, either yesterday, the day before, the day after, or even today. So on a traditional basis, what seems to be the norm is that we commemorate majalis, we hold majalis in commemoration for the Imam talk about significant points of the death of the Imam, take those away and say how they can be applied within our lives and so on and so forth, or perform eulogy, latmiya and whatnot. However, when we look at the facts, the majority of us, if I'm not mistaken, already know how the Imam died. As in, when we were young, we were taught the names of all the 14 Ma'sumin actually, beginning with Rasulullah, and then Fatima Zahra, ending with Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman, Ajallallahu ta'ala farajahu al-Sharif. We all know that starting from the Prophet up till the number 11, the 11th Imam, Imam Hassan al-Askari, they were all martyred, brothers and sisters, either by poison or by the sword. So commemorating the death of Imam Hassan al-Askari by saying he was martyred and poisoned isn't generally something new. You may benefit points because it's very vital to remember and remind ourselves of what happened, what occurred, in order to feel more compassionate and apply those lessons in our lives. Otherwise, why do we commemorate Ashura every single year? You know, every single year we commemorate the 40th or the Arba'iniyah or the 10th of Muharram and everything that leads up to it. Every year we do it. Every year we say the same stories, but every year we learn new. Likewise with the martyrdom of Imam Hassan al-Askari. But the significant point here is that Imam al-Hussein died the more significant death than any other human in the world. Otherwise, it would have rained blood as it did in Karbala, the 10th of Muharram, the afternoon of Ashura, when Rasulullah died. Because the Holy Prophet of Islam is greater than any person that we can understand. If the word perfection was to be manifested into a human, if you were to take the word perfect and make it into a human, you would end up with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. But it didn't rain blood when he was taken away from this earth. Or likewise when Imam al-Hassan was martyred, or any other of the Imams, except Imam al-Hussein. Because the rest of the Imams didn't die such a significant death, where in front of you, you witness your brothers and sisters, your nieces, your nephews, your sons, your best friends and your companions slaughtered one by one. The death was very significant to the point where Imam al-Hassan al-Mujtaba, his brother, before the events of Karbala, he said, La yawm ka yawmuka ya Aba Abdullah, there will never be a day like your day. So remembering and reviving the message of Imam al-Hussein every year, we can benefit. But how about the rest of the Imams? If we're just going to say that tonight Imam al-Hassan al-Askari alayhi salam was martyred and we are going to take some points, we generally don't achieve much with that, brothers and sisters. Because it's like opening a book from the last page. We know the outcome. And why do we focus on the 28th year of his life? He lived for 28 years. Because Imam Hassan al-Askari alayhi salam was born in around the year 846 AD. And was martyred in the year 874. So he was 28 years old. We focus on that 28th year more than we focus on any other year. Because believe it or not, one unique aspect about Imam al-Askari alayhi salam is that with every year in his life, there was a point of significance we can benefit from. Even year one, even when he was 1 year old. He wasn't Imam, because the Imam achieved the imamat after the martyrdom of his father. That's how it works. Generally speaking, we all know this. When the Imam passes away, it carries on to his son. Imam al-Ali al-Hadi alayhi salam was martyred by the Caliph al-Mu'taz al-Abbasi, and his son Imam Hassan al-Askari was 22 years old. Very young, very young, and very quickly introduced to the realm of the disaster that was going to come in front of him. The responsibility falling before him. 22 years old. That's a big responsibility. And he lived to 28. So 6 years. 6 years did the Imam try his best to strive and spread the message of Islam. Yet generally, traditionally, we focus on that 28th year and end of story. Because what can we grasp in that 28th year? Basically, the Imam was poisoned by the Caliph of that time, Al-Mu'tamid Al-Abbasi. May God's curses be upon him. And after the poisoning occurred, the Imam then was preyed upon by his son, Sahib al-Zaman. But Sahib al-Zaman then came and pushed away his uncle Ja'far, who claimed the imamate for himself. We all know this by now. 28 years preceding that. Let's look at that, brothers and sisters, in complete depth, so that we know when Sahib al-Zaman, Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajahu sharif, is around, is next to us, is with us, and he approaches us, and we say, we are from your Shia, and he tells me, what do you know about my father? You say, I only know 28 years, the 28 year, and that's it? This message tonight, brothers and sisters, goes out to the father of Imam al-Hujjah, the father of Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman. His father was more oppressed in a way that is so strange, because during the life of the Imam, yes, he was oppressed, as was every Imam. But even after the life of the Imam, what do we mean? Number one, we aren't remembering his significance. Number two, in 2006, brothers and sisters, in Samarra, Imam Hassan al-Askari and Imam Ali al-Hadi shrine was blown up by terrorists. Terrorists. They blew the haram up. It was destroyed from the ground up. And the mischievous thing that they tried to do was that when they engaged in this horrible act, they planted these devices underground with the idea in mind that maybe the explosion reaches the body. To destroy the idea, the sovereignty that lies within Samarra, the beauty that holds Iraq and eventually the Shia world altogether, Imam Hassan al-Askari. Yet they failed in their mission, because now, as we can clearly see in the news, thankfully, alhamdulillah, the shrine is being rebuilt. And the shrine of Ahlul Bayt will always stand firm and tall. Nobody will come facing it, claiming they can ruin it and end the message. For you can end a person, but you will never end the message. And with that being said, let us look at the life of Imam Hassan al-Askari, so that, just keep it in mind, when Sahib al-Zaman does come out, we can say to him, Ya Sayyidi wa Ya Mawlai, I understand the importance of you, not just because I love you blindly, but because I know where you came from, because I know how hard it was to maintain the message of Islam by your father, the great, the noble, the militant Al-Askari, Imam Hassan Al-Askari, Salamullahi alayhi. So we're going to begin by analyzing his name. Before anything, let's just look at his name. His name, obviously, is Al-Imam al-Hassan. But the term Askari is a very debated issue. When you look at the Imams, you find that up till Imam Zainul Abidin, alayhi salam, the nickname, not the nickname, but more so the titles started to become more prevalent. Imam Ali had several titles, but we know him as Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. Imam al-Hussein has several titles, Abi Abdullah, al-Shaheed, Sayyid al-Ahrar, kada kada, all these titles. But we know him as Imam al-Hussein. Likewise, Imam al-Hassan, al-Mujtaba, but we know him as Imam al-Hassan. Imam Hassan al-Askari, the title he holds, al-Askari, they say that the title came from the fact that he lived in Samarra, because Samarra is a military base. At the time, Samarra, the city of Samarra in Iraq, is a military garrison. It's like a barracks where people go to arm themselves to go to war. It wasn't such a lively city, or markets were thriving and the economy was great. No, it was a military base. When the Imam was put under house arrest in Samarra, only then did he achieve the title Al-Askari. And there's another opinion. The second opinion is that no, perhaps the city is a military base, but the true meaning is when the Imam was called by the Caliph of that time, and I believe it was Al-Musta'in, because brothers and sisters, Imam Hassan al-Askari lived through 6 caliphs during his time. 6. We're going to continue with the name and the meaning of the title, but let's briefly analyze this. 6 caliphs, yani khulafa, rulers, that had power over the Imam. Whereas when you look at Imams Ali ibn Abi Talib, Imam al-Hussein, Imam al-Hassan, they had generally 3. You begin with the first caliph, Abu Bakr ibn Abu Quhafa, then the second, Umar bin Khattab, and then the third, Uthman bin Affan. And then after Uthman, Imam Ali achieved the caliphate. He was the rightful leader of the Muslim Ummah, but for 4 years and a half. And then after Imam Ali, we know where this goes. After Imam Ali, if somebody can tell me, Muawiyah. And then after Muawiyah, did the events of Karbala begin to start emerging, then Yazid, and then so on and so forth. But this was through a duration of several Imams, brothers and sisters, several. Imam Hassan al-Askari, 6. 6. Could you imagine each and every caliph had his own method, had his own approach. Some were more lenient to the Ahlul Bayt, to Al-Muhammad. Others were no. They were boasting, prideful, arrogant, ignorant people that simply couldn't care less about the family of Rasulullah, yet they claimed themselves Muslims. So there were 6. One of them by the name of Al-Musta'in Al-Abbasi, because this is Banu Abbas, brothers and sisters. You begin with, when you look at Ahlul Bayt, there are generally two great empires that ruled. Beginning with Rasulullah, his own empire, and then Imam Ali, of course. But when you look at the year 50 after Hijrah, the year 50 after Hijrah was when Imam al-Hasan, salamullahi alayh, was martyred. Muawiyah claimed the throne for himself. Claiming it for himself, Banu Umayyah began to emerge. Banu Umayyah, from Muawiyah, his son, from Yazid to his family members, up until the last Umayyad caliph. His name is Marwan. They refer to him as, and this is actually what the encyclopedias state, the history books from both schools of thought, brothers and sisters. His title was Marwan al-Himar. And I'm pretty sure most of you know what that means. He was such a bad ruler at the time. They called him Marwan, the mule, the donkey. This is a strict, firm, legitimate title he was given. He wasn't a great ruler. He was the last of the Umayyad rulers. And then Banu Abbas began to emerge. The Abbasid family, they came in and they took over the caliphate. They started by oppressing Imam Musa al-Kadhim with Harun al-Rashid, and then from Harun al-Ma'mun, from al-Ma'mun al-Amin, or from Harun al-Amin, from al-Amin Ma'mun, and so on and so forth, up until you have al-Mutawakkil al-Abbasi. And this family, this was a family, al-Mutawakkil to his last grandson that martyred Imam Hassan al-Askari alayhi salam. One of these, of the six, one of them ordered Imam Hassan al-Askari to the court. Because under house arrest, he has to keep a good eye on him. Because they may be against the Imam directly, but indirectly they understand his prominence and his level and his status within the eyes of Allah and the Muslimin. And the key point is within the Muslimin, because the Shia were having enough. They had it. We can't live like this with all our Imams. Every one of our Imams in jail. Either they're in jail or they're limited and oppressed. We want to reach them. And they have every right. We want to see the Imam. If your Imam is amongst you today, our Imam is in occultation. But if he is amongst us physically, yet he is in jail, how would you feel? I can't visit him? They had it. They said, we're fed up. We want the Imam. And if you don't give me my Imam out, if you don't allow him his freedom, we will have a revolt, a coup. They will try to overthrow. So they kept an eye on the Imam. Al-Musta'in invited the Imam to his palace, from his prison. And to his palace, or outside of his palace, he wanted to boast his pride. He said, look at my army. Ibn al-Rida, Imam al-Rida alayhi salam was the, let's say, the successor to al-Ma'mun basically. He had that status in Mashhad. So he became very popular amongst the politicians. So every Imam after Imam al-Rida was called Ibn al-Rida. Even though directly Imam Hassan al-Askari is the son of who? Imam al-Hadi. Imam al-Hadi is the son of who? Imam al-Jawad. Imam al-Jawad is the son of Rida. But everyone preceding Imam al-Rida was called Ibn al-Rida. Because Imam al-Rida had, he went to that level where al-Ma'mun put him as his successor. So from then on, they called them Ibn al-Rida. He said, Ibn al-Rida, look at my army. And so he made his men march in front of him, the horses, the men walk in front of him with their spears and everything to show off. To give him a message. Don't think you can just overthrow me. I have this military. And we're still on the topic as to why his name is Al-Askari. So once the military march was over, the Imam said, that's your military? He said to him, yeah. He said, look at my military. And so the Imam did something like this. And this is what the hadith says. And this is an opinion. But he did this. He said, look between my two fingers. And so the caliph would look between his two fingers. And by the miracle of Allah, an army emerged from lances and swordsmen and elite fighters were marching. And it took them hours to go by and make their way until he was given that title. My goodness, you are the true militant. You are Anta al-Askari. And so that is one opinion as to how you receive the title. Both of them, I can't see why we can't accept both of them, but nonetheless, moving on from that. From his name, brothers and sisters, if we are to be questioned, you love your Ahlul Bayt, tell me where the number 11, your 11th Imam, tell me where he was born. Again, here's an issue. The Imam, there are two views. He was either born in Samarra, immediately giving the assumption that yes, he was born in that military base, then he's given the title Askari. But the more popular opinion within our ulama, and amongst these ulama are Shaykh al-Saduq and Shaykh al-Kulayni, May Allah's peace and blessings be upon these great scholars and all of our great scholars, they testified that no, the Imam was born in Medina. In the year 232 after Hijrah and was martyred in the year 260. Again, making the Imam 28 years of age, very young. In Medina, as soon as he was born, brothers and sisters, is where our knowledge stops, for some reason. And then we skip ahead up to 28 years. And I said this earlier. We skip ahead to, it's like as if you read the beginning of the book, and then you read the ending of the book, and you skipped everything in the middle. No. And then some events are cherry-picked. Yes, the Imam at one point was called by, and we're going to analyze this inshallah given the time we have, but we can't analyze the whole life of the Imam. Obviously, that would require lectures. But one point they would probably, what would be mentioned is, by many speakers, is that the Imam was called one day to deal with this drought. There was a massive drought. And the Imam was approached by the Caliph. He was in Baghdad at one point, because the Imam would be imprisoned in Samarra. And remember, 6 caliphs, each one had their own taste and flavor. Each one said, no, I don't like him. The other one said, no, I like him, but I don't care about him. So they had their own distinctive approach to Ahlul Bayt. So one day he's in prison, one day he's in jail, one day he's back and forth. One year, one of these years, again, it was probably this caliph, Al-Musta'in, may Allah's curse be upon him, he imprisoned him in Baghdad. He said, no, you're going to the prison. I don't like you at all. And so he put him in the prison. 1 week, there was a drought. A month passed, a drought. Almost months passed. Drought remained in Iraq. People were becoming worried. Their livestock was dying, their crops, everything was going away. Their commodities were ending. That would then branch to business. Their business would end, people would be homeless. So one man approached from the blue, out of the blue. And this was a Christian monk. He came to the Caliph and he says, I can solve your drought issue. And so the Caliph said, what do you mean? He said, look, I'm going to raise my hands in dua, a Christian monk. Raise my hands in dua to the earth, to the samawat, to the heavens. And this story is very famous. And when I do that, it will rain. And so likewise, he did it. It rained. People began to convert to Christianity. Don't blame them. There was a serious drought. A Christian monk raises his hands in dua, it begins to rain. And so the Caliph, and this is where the hypocrisy truly lies, brothers and sisters, concerned about the well-being of Islam, for some reason, yet he has his Imam in jail, approaches the Imam and says, Yabna al-Rida, we are worried the people are converting to Christianity, they're becoming Christians. He says, why? He says, because there was a drought, Christian monk came, made dua, it rained, people were becoming Christians. The Imam said, look, I can deal with this. Release me from this prison and ask that Christian monk again to raise his hands in dua. But when he does, follow my lead and do as I tell you. And so they did it. They gathered all the people, the aristocrats and everybody, the men, the women, the citizens, and they said, Christian monk, raise your hands in dua, make rain come down. And so he did, and it rained. And the Imam said, his hand, open it, and get what's inside of it, and bring it here, and I'll explain. And so as soon as he raised his hands in dua, they confiscated what was in his hands, and they found, and this is very interesting, a bone that belonged, the Imam began to explain, this bone belonged to one of the prophets of Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala, shukran. We have 124,000 anbiya. He managed to go dig up the grave of one of them, take a bone, and subhanallah, and this can be a lesson to us, he asked Allah, tawassul, through the bone, Ya Allah, make it rain. Even though he's a Christian monk and he probably did something haram by digging up a grave, which is haram, by the way, especially if it was someone as important as one of the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yet Allah answered the dua because that bone is near and close to Allah. Through the bone, make it rain. It rained. And so they said, this is the reason as to why he's been successful. He says, now try doing it with the bone not in your hands. He raises his hand, it doesn't rain. So the Imam said, you want me to show you true rain and end this drought? The Imam then prayed, and brothers and sisters, read in Mafatih al-Jinan, there are many mustahab salats. There are many prayers that are mustahab. One of them is salat al-istisqa, the prayer you pray when there's a drought. Imam Hassan al-Askari went, and he went barefoot. He said, if I pray like my grandfather Rasulullah, I do my method. He says, fine. He goes and he approaches the land and he raises his hand and he says, Allahu Akbar, began to pray the salah. After finishing and concluding with his prayer, only then did Iraq experience a heavy rain. It was almost drowning. They almost began drowning from the rain that was being brought down through the dua and prayer of Imam Hassan al-Askari alayhi as-salam, and that ended with the drought. The Imam, his life, brothers and sisters, is very much cherry-picked. And we need to look at the stages. And I mentioned that every year there is a lesson. And when I said at the year one, his infancy, his youth, when he was about 5 years old, there even is a lesson there. How does that happen? Because look, when Imam Hassan al-Askari, with his father, Imam Ali al-Hadi, was taken by the Caliph, we mentioned there were 6. Brothers and sisters, before I move on, let me just mention something very quickly. Imam Ali alayhi salam, once speaking on the pulpit, on the minbar, he's in Kufa, he said to his congregation, everybody listen, if you guys are interested in buying ilm, knowledge, who is interested in buying knowledge? Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, we generally gain knowledge, we have to experience something to gain it. What do you mean buy it? He says, who wants to buy knowledge for 1 dirham? They all raised their hands. Imam Ali said, then go buy a piece of paper and pen. And you know where I'm getting with this. What's being said, brothers and sisters, remain steadfast so that if you are asked, you are prepared. How is it that we can benefit from a 5-year-old? I'll tell you. But brothers and sisters, if you can, let's try to carry this on so that we are able to spread this. If it's on your phone, it's okay. If it's, maybe this is probably the only time you're allowed to go on your phone when somebody is speaking. Nonetheless, if it's on any way, remember it if you can, if you have, mashallah, good memory. Nonetheless, the Imam at 5 years of age, where were we? 5 years old. And he was in Samarra. After being taken with his father, Imam Ali al-Hadi didn't just leave. He says, no, I'm taking my family. He took his sister. He took his sister, As-Sayyidah Hakimah, the grandmother, or the great-grand-aunt of Imam Mahdi. He took his sister. He took all his sons. He took his wife. He took them all with him. And he went to Samarra, because a strong family that grows up together stays together. And in Samarra, the Imam was a very youthful, energetic sort of boy, but he was very philosophical. Because one day there was a man that was walking home from work, back home from work, and on his path he noticed that there were a group of children playing amongst themselves with their toys and laughing and having a good time. When the person actually made his way to these children, he noticed that amongst these children that were playing with their toys and having a good time, there was one boy that was by himself, segregated. He wasn't playing, he was toyless, he didn't have a toy, and above that he was crying. But the feature that caught this man's attention, that gave him the effort to not continue home, but to face the direction of that boy and actually acknowledge what's happening, was the feature, and that feature was his beauty. The man describes that this young child, you wouldn't call him handsome, because handsome is used for like older men. He was, let's say, cute. He was too illuminating for me. The beauty in this kid's eye was too much for me to not stop my way home and just look at and acknowledge what's happening. So he goes to the young boy and he says, young boy, why are you crying? I see you and your friends, you're with your friends, but you're not playing with them, you're alone. Is it because you don't have a toy? Do you want me to go buy you a toy? He was actually willing to spend his hard-earned money to go buy a toy for a random kid that's crying. I tell you, some of our people, we know a kid that cries is the last thing you want to put your attention to. Above that, you want to buy them a toy, they're not going to leave you, they're going to clench onto you until you have a long beard. Nonetheless, he says to the young child, he says, young boy, listen, do you want me to buy you a toy so you can stop crying? Because I can't handle seeing someone like you crying. And so the young boy looked at him and said, sir, oh sir, listen, this world was not created for you and I to play with toys. It has a deeper meaning and message, and for that I cry. The man was astonished. He says, I couldn't handle myself. I was astonished. I was dumbfounded. How can a young child give such a philosophical response like that? A very young boy. And so he says, why is that? Tell me your reason. Because it's easy to make statements, brothers and sisters, but it's difficult to reference them. It's difficult to authenticate it. He says, why is that then? Why is it that we've been created not to play with toys or have fun? How come? And then the young boy then moves a step further and says, haven't you read the Holy Quran when it said in Surah Al-Mu'minun, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, أَفَحَسِبْتُمْ أَنَّمَا خَلَقْنَاكُمْ عَبَثًا وَإِنَّكُمْ إِلَيْنَا لَا تُرْجَعُونَ. He's like, what? Did you think we created you in vain and that you will not return to us, back to us, and everything is just willy-nilly, have fun? There is a deeper meaning and purpose. And for that, oh man, I cry. And the man looked at the child and he says, I can't handle this. I'm going to go back home and tell my family and everybody I know what happened. But I'm not going to introduce you to them as just some kid or some boy, because you're not some kid or just some random boy. Who are you? And then the young boy looked at him and says, Ana al-Hasan ibn Ali ibn Muhammad ibn Ali ibn Musa ibn Ja'far ibn al-Baqir ابن علي زين العابدين ابن الحسين أخي الحسن ابن أمير المؤمنين علي ابن أبي طالب, the husband of Fatima al-Zahra, the daughter of Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So that in itself, when an imam isn't officially an imam, there are still lessons, brothers and sisters, that we can benefit and learn from, without a doubt. Because whether the imam is in action or he is not, the Prophet said that the imams, Al-Hasani wal-Hussein, they are imams whether they were standing or sitting. The deeper message to that is that whether they are imams officially or they are not, they still have many reasons to make you look at them and benefit from them in all aspects of life. The imam, yes, Al-Hasan al-Askari was imam when he was 22. But we just understood something when he was about 5 years old that you wouldn't generally find from a 5-year-old child or any other child of that age, for example. And it really makes you think and reflect as to how Ahlul Bayt, with such capacity and abilities to move on and change the world, were so oppressed by being put in prison. Which leads us to the second point, the khulafa that ruled the imam, that had power over the imam. You see, because as soon as Imam Hassan al-Askari was born, the same year he was born, or the year after, 1 year later, let's say, Al-Mutawakkil al-Abbasi takes him and his father from Medina to Samarra. In Samarra, the Imam then lived up to 14 years until that same man, Al-Mutawakkil al-Abbasi, died. And this caliph, let me tell you, all he cared about was lust and desire and fun and drinking and games and his palaces and all things materialistic. Couldn't care less about anything metaphysical, the spiritual life, the reason that we live, so we serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nothing. He was too concerned with his own wealth and his own pride and everything, and he died when the Imam was 14 years of age. After the Imam, brothers and sisters, the interesting thing is, the caliph that came after Al-Mutawakkil was his own son, which isn't something new. This is something very popular and common. It's a dynasty, it's what it's called, almost a monarchy. You have the leader, and then you have his son, and then his leader and his son. It's very similar, and let's not shy away from this issue. It's very similar to the Ahlul Bayt alayhim wassalam. The Imam would then announce that his son would be the Imam, or you have Imam al-Hussein and then or Imam al-Hassan and his brother, but these were rightfully guided, divine, appointed vicegerents, ambassadors, Hujjatullah ala khalqah, deserving people. Not just any random person who says, Yalla, me and my son is going to be ruling, and then inshallah after you, your son. And if they can't have a son, disaster. Just like that one king, I forgot his name, it's slipping out of my mind right now. One of these kings in Britain, years ago obviously, hundreds of years ago, couldn't have a son. I can't remember the name. And so he tried his best. He had daughters, but he couldn't have a boy. And so he tried his best, and the wife that wouldn't give him a boy, he would divorce. Eventually he died sonless, and his monarchy ended right there. Or they picked his cousin, or something like that. This was the similar case with Banu Abbas. However, the funny thing is, and I mentioned the surprising thing is, was that Al-Mutawakkil al-Abbasi was overthrown by his own son, Al-Muntasir al-Abbasi. He came in and he says, listen, and this is very interesting and very debatable, but he was one of those khulafa that actually took a stance against his own family. Because you have many people from families, if the whole family is bad, don't just judge the whole entire family. There can be somebody that shines away from them. Likewise, a very beautiful household, a tree. There's probably one bad apple. Okay, but don't judge the whole entire family. This man, Al-Muntasir al-Abbasi, what does he do? He says, you know what? I'm going to kill my father. He can't be overthrown. I'm going to kill him. And so the Ottoman Empire was beginning to emerge. agreeing with the Turks, he says, come with me, let's go assassinate him at night. Now, there is a hadith by the Holy Prophet, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, to which he says that he who is responsible for the death or the passing away of his own father will not live very long. Likewise, this man, he says, I don't care anymore. This hadith, I believe it, but I don't care. He must go. I cannot handle him. The way he's treating Ahlul Bayt, the way he is depriving the Shia of Ahlul Bayt. He has economical sanctions on Ahlul Bayt because they are Ahlul Bayt and their families and their companions. They are not going to buy, no one's going to sell them anything. They are living hard lives, and he is just a prideful, boastful, arrogant, ignorant person. And he admits that my father is not worthy enough to rule, so he assassinated him. And this is very interesting. Maybe this approach wasn't the best right now at the moment, but he truly ended the world of he rid the world of such a terrible man. And then when he became the caliph, this man, Al-Muntasir, Al-Mutawakkil's son, what he then decided to do was, number one, take the imam out of jail. He's like, no, you don't deserve to be in prison. You don't deserve to be in prison. You deserve to be somewhere else, outside of the prison. Your place is not in the prisons. The prisons hold criminals. You are nowhere near a criminal. So he took him out of the prison. He returned, and this reminds me of that one caliph from Banu Umayyah, who was his name? Umar bin Abdul Aziz. He says, listen, I will return Fadak back to the Shia. For those of you that studied the history of Banu Umayyah and Banu Abbas, will know that one of the caliphs, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, returned Fadak back to Ahlul Bayt after it was taken by Fatima Zahra alayha salam unrightfully. What he did, Al-Muntasir likewise returned it back again, because after the years moved on and progressed, it was taken away from the Ahlul Bayt. Fadak, brothers and sisters, for those of you that don't know, is a piece of land north of Khaybar. You know Khaybar, where Imam Ali picked up the gate of Khaybar and killed that marhab, or that man that had rulership, the Jews. You know Khaybar? It's north of Khaybar. The more north you go, generally speaking, the more fertile the ground is. It's less hot. So Fadak was a thriving, lush area, huge strip of land that the Prophet gifted to Fatima Zahra alayha salam. Land filled with nothing but fertile and fruitful plants and everything. It was very lively. Ahlul Bayt had that taken away from them. And when Ahlul Bayt had that taken away from them, who returned it back to them? This man Al-Muntasir. He's like, no, this deserves to be back with Ahlul Bayt. And so he did that. And he was not so hard on the followers, the Shia. Because generally when a caliph rules, he's afraid of one thing being overthrown. And when there is a popular movement happening, the Ahlul Bayt and their Shia, they are afraid of not the Ahlul Bayt, they are afraid of their Shia. Because Ahlul Bayt are perfect, brothers and sisters. Their Shia are not. They're not perfect. They can do something by mistake. They can overthrow me. He was easy on them. Yet, as the hadith mentions, if you are responsible for the passing of your father, you will not live that long. And he died, how long? How long did he stay? He stayed not even a year, he stayed for about a few months. Until he died of what? Natural death. After he was overthrown, brothers and sisters, you then find a new caliph came into play, but also one of those caliphs from Banu Abbas that really couldn't care less about Ahlul Bayt. His name is Al-Musta'in. Yes, Al-Musta'in was another one of those caliphs that was very ruthless. He was bad. He couldn't care. And they say he had bad, and this is a lesson for us, he had bad hygiene. Bad hygiene, the ruler of the Muslim Ummah. By the way, what's the Muslim Ummah, brothers and sisters? It spans from the far wests of Spain to the far easts of China or Indonesia. That was all under the Muslim Caliphate. If you were the leader of the Muslim world at that time, this was your Ummah. And this man, they say he couldn't care about his hygiene. He couldn't care about the way he was governing his people. He was basically incompetent. He had a high level of incompetence. He was overthrown by the Turks. They said, we can't handle you. You're bad. Go away. So they pushed him aside. After he was put away, brothers and sisters, a man this was 4 years. After he was put away, a man by the name of Al-Mu'taz Al-Abbasi. Al-Mu'taz would be the man that's responsible for the assassination of Imam Ali al-Hadi. And at this age, Imam Hassan al-Askari was 22 years of age, brothers and sisters. And at that time, brothers and sisters, that difficult time when you have your father poisoned, not just anywhere, but in your own home. Because in this period, the Imam wasn't in prison anymore. For the most part, he was in his home under house arrest in Samarra. And under house arrest, they sent a few men to poison the food of Imam Ali al-Hadi. And the Imam was poisoned. But before he was martyred, he announced that, listen, before I leave, I announce him as my Imam. And he pointed at Al-Hasan al-Askari alayhi salam. There was a very big notion that no, not Imam Hasan al-Askari was going to be the Imam, but rather his brother, his brother Muhammad ibn al-Imam Hasan Ali al-Hadi. Muhammad was this very interesting, devout, peaceful, pious figure. The history narrations, they mention he was tall, he was handsome, he was always either seen only doing tasbih or dua or reciting Quran. He was a generous person. Everybody said he will be the next Imam. But the Imam Hasan al-Askari was announced that no, he will be the Imam. And what happened was this man, Muhammad, who is now known as Muhammad Sab' al-Dijjal, right now buried in Madain in Iraq. So for those of you that can go do the ziyarah, you can. He has his own dharih and his own qubba, his own mazar, his shrine is available for all those to come and visit and grant their wishes, and it will be answered, because he is known as Babul Hawa'ij. People go and they ask from him, and he always never returns anybody empty-handed. Muhammad Sab' al-Dijjal is what he's referred to, brothers and sisters. But he died in the life of Imam Ali al-Hadi. So obviously he couldn't be the Imam if the current Imam is alive. The Imam then turned to Imam Hasan al-Askari alayhi as-salam. The Imam Hasan al-Askari was married before the martyrdom of his father. Because what's interesting was, you find that the father of the Imam instructed for the marriage of his son to happen. Generally, Ahlul Bayt would go on with their own accord. When they want to be married, they find the means to do so. Like for example, Imam Ali alayhi salam approached his brother. He says to his brother Aqil, he says, Ya Aqil, find me a wife. I want a wife that will give me a son, that will help my son, Imam al-Hussein in Karbala. And he found al-Banin, and she gave him whom? Abul Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam. She gave him Abul Fadl al-Abbas. Ahlul Bayt would go on their own accord. But Imam Hasan al-Askari, instructed by his father, he was instructed to marry a very particular, interesting character in history. For those of you that have seen the animation called Princess of Rome, some of you have, and for those of you that have, will understand. It's a very interesting, was it nice? It's a very interesting cartoon, basically, that highlights the wife of Imam Hasan al-Askari, the mom of Imam al-Hujjah, ajalallahu ta'ala farajahu al-sharif. Now, I haven't seen it, but I heard the reviews are good, and this is not a sponsor. He says to his son, Imam al-Hadi says, my son, I will marry you to one of these ladies, a pious, God-fearing woman. But you are deserving of only the pious and God-fearing women. And so he instructs his companion, Bishr ibn Sulaiman. He says to him, go. He was under house arrest at the time, so he can't do it himself. And probably that was the reason, perhaps. The Ahlul Bayt would go on their own accord, as we mentioned, under house arrest. He would instruct his companion, Bishr ibn Sulaiman. He says, go to the riverbanks of the Tigris River in Baghdad. And go to the riverbanks, O Bishr, and go there, and you will see a shipment unloading its cargo. And amongst the things coming out will be a group of women. These were the women that were captured in the skirmish between the Byzantines and Banu Abbas. And they will be selling this women. Now the Imam al-Hadi is predicting this. This ilmul ghayb is something that he exemplified in that point. Amongst these women, there will be one woman that will stand out. She will wear the hijab of Fatima Zahra salamullahi alayha, and she will not allow anyone to buy her, because women cannot be bought. And brothers and sisters, this very significant point right here. Very interesting point. He says, listen, she will not allow anybody to buy her. You go, and I will give you money, because her owner, the owner of that shipment, will not accept anyone to have anything without money. So you're not buying her. You're receiving the permission to allow this woman to go with you and back to me. And before you go, to prove the point, to set it in stone, here is a written letter I wrote, and you give it to her. Now, what happened was, in that year, around that year, brothers and sisters, the year let's say 250, around that year, because I don't know what the year exactly was, what year it was when Imam al-Hasan al-Askari got married. But what happened was in Rome, in the Vatican, Caesar II was reserving a day in which he would marry his daughter, Narjis Khatun, to one of her relatives. On the day of the wedding, brothers and sisters, the paintings and the priests and the bishops were amongst them. The paintings fell. An earthquake happened. The room shook. Everybody was startled. We're describing the events that highlighted and revolved around the mother of Imam al-Hujjah, brothers and sisters. And so the wedding was canceled. They saved it for another day. Again, they married. And this is in Bihar al-Anwar if you guys would like to research this more. They got together. They were going to get married. The ceremony took place. Paintings fall. This was a bad omen, bad sign. Something's not right here. And then this wonderful lady has a dream. In her dream, she describes her dream saying that I saw Jesus, son of Mary. And I saw Muhammad ibn Abdullah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And I saw the Holy Prophet of Islam saying to Jesus, he says, "Oh Jesus, let the daughter of your apostle Simon," because Narjis Khatun, the wife of Imam Hassan al-Askari, is the great-great-great-granddaughter of Simon, one of the companions of Jesus. Let the daughter of your companion Simon marry my son Hassan al-Askari alayhi salam. And so she said, this dream has a meaning, but I need more facts. Another day passes, she has another dream, to which she sees the Virgin Mary alayha salam, and she sees Fatima Zahra salamullahi alayha. Again the agreement, let my son marry from the apostle of your son Jesus. And she wakes up and then she sees her Imam. She sees Imam Ali al-Hadi, and he says, I'm giving you the hand of my son Hassan al-Askari. You will be a mother of one of the greatest men, the mother of one of the men that will lead the world and fill it with justice after it has been filled with injustice. Sahib al-Asr wa zaman, ajalallahu ta'ala farajahu sharif. And she awoke and said, listen, I know that there is a place where the Byzantines and the Banu Abbas will be having a war. Generally, when wars occur, brothers and sisters, nurses are sent. Do you get where this is going? Nurses are sent to aid and help the wounded and be of a support for them and with them. She escaped the palace in disguise and goes to the battlefield in disguise, and then the war is fought, they lose, they get captured. She arrives in the Tigris River, north of Baghdad, in the banks. Bishr bin Sulaiman sees her and he recognizes her. And he goes to her and he says, I want to buy her. She rejects. He says, but wait, here is a note. Remember that note Imam Ali al-Hadi wrote. And she read it. Now, I don't know whether or not this note was written in Latin or in Arabic or no. But she read the note. And she was immediately mesmerized, because the hadith mentions, again, if you want to research this, this is in Bihar al-Anwar, one of our great compilations of narrations and stories, for more information. She says, she kisses on the note. The narration says, she kisses it, places it in her heart, and she says, take me to the owner of this note. And she goes and she arrives in the home in Samarra, in the house of Imam Hassan al-Askari, in the house of Imam Ali al-Hadi, and with them she is greeted. And what happens was Imam Ali al-Hadi then announces that she will marry my son, but before that, my sister. Who did we say Imam Ali al-Hadi took with him? He took the whole family, right? His sons, he took his sister, As-Sayyida Hakima. Brothers and sisters, if you go to Samarra today, inshallah, it's safe for us to go. If you go today, you see that there are about 3 graves. What does it say? Number 1, it says Imam Hassan ibn Ali al-Askari. And then the second grave, it says Imam Ali al-Hadi. Okay? And then the third grave says As-Sayyida Hakima. Alayha as-salam. Alayhum as-salam. These 3 are buried amongst each other because they were buried in that same home. This Sayyida Hakima, I wish we have time to speak about her merits and her achievements and her accolades, because truly there are figures in history whom we know more about, celebrities and icons, but the people of Ahlul Bayt that are responsible for giving you what we have today, giving us what we have today. Our thanks to Allah, goes back to them, this great woman. She then takes a Sayyida Narjis and she teaches her, gives her the ropes, the reins, teaches her the halal of Islam, the haram of Islam, because she was just introduced to Islam. She was the only European Westerner to marry with Al-Muhammad. Most of them were from either North Africa, from the Arabian Peninsula. No, she was the first one from the Western world. And this is a sign for us. Let go of this nepotism. Let go of it. We can marry outside of just your own street. Some of these brothers and sisters, brothers, I tell you, they won't marry somebody unless they're from their own country. This pride with them. And you can't blame them, but they have this pride. They go above that, your own village. You're from Tibnin? No. You have to be from Bint Jbel. Right? No, you're from Nasriya? No, you got to be from Basra. I'm so sorry. I know, brothers and sisters, if you're not from my same street, don't you dare approach my daughter. Something like that. No, we can take this lesson that you can expand. Just find the most pious. The criteria is basically three. Pious, because they have to be pious. They have to have that piety in their heart and soul, brothers and sisters. Otherwise, what use is a person if they don't have that piety and reflection and remembrance to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Pious. And they have to understand the value of the Imams and Ahlul Bayt. And on top of that, the Holy Prophet of Islam, Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa Muhammad. Because nobody wants to get involved with anybody that says, I couldn't care less about these 14 individuals. Absolutely not. It wrecks the heart almost. And the third criteria is someone that is open-minded. You can be pious. You can have love for Ahlul Bayt. But if you're not open-minded, if you couldn't care to expand outside of your inner bubble and circle, you're not going to have friends, number one. Then you're not going to have a spouse, a potential spouse. Open-mindedness, piousness, and the love for Rasulullah and his Ahlul Bayt. This Sayyida Hakima taught the mother of Imam al-Hujjah this important role. And with that being said, we are very, very thankful for that event to occur, so that we have an Imam today. We always raise our hands and say, Allahumma ajjil li waliyaka al-faraj. And we ask Allah to make that, to hasten that appearance, brothers and sisters. So she came and then she married the Imam. When they got married, brothers and sisters, it was as if the world experienced its Eid al-Ghadir again. Everyone was happy, everybody was cheerful. And this lasted, brothers and sisters, until Imam Ali al-Hadi was martyred in his own home. Imagine one day. And the thought is very heartbreaking. Coming back to your own home and seeing your beloved member, any member of your family, martyred. And he achieved that imam. And upon receiving that imam and becoming that imam, that responsibility that he had, more and more stress and sanctions are implemented on Ahlul Bayt. This goes on from Al-Muntasir, who we said was more lenient, from Al-Muntasir to Al-Musta'een, who we said was incompetent, from Al-Musta'een to Al-Muhtadi. Al-Muhtadi. Al-Muhtadi, brothers and sisters, jailed the imam. We said he was in house arrest. This time he jailed him. No, you're in jail. I don't care about you. He puts him in jail. In jail, the Shia said, we are fed up. We can't handle this anymore. And truly they would be. We would be. And so the Imam said, listen, I will predict the death of this man in 5 days. Truly, in 5 days, this Al-Muhtadi was killed by the Turks. Again, incompetence. Now I ask you, why do you rule if you are incompetent? If you don't have the ability? What does this remind you of a recent election? Why do you rule if you don't have the experience? Why? You'll be overthrown. Hence. And we move on from that until he was overthrown, brothers and sisters. And then the grandson of that same man, Al-Mutawakkil, Al-Abbasi, that started it all, Al-Mu'tamid, may Allah's curses be upon him, was instilled in the Muslim caliphate and was the caliph. And he had the grief and hatred for Ahlul Bayt like no other caliph before him. He tortured the Imam in a way that was so unbearable and unbelievable. And brothers and sisters, I see that the food has arrived, but I want to continue on this point so that we can actually give a response to Sahib al-Zaman. And I take this into consideration. Brother, what do you mean Sahib al-Zaman is going to... And if Sahib al-Zaman returns and asks for his aid, and we approach him and we don't know a thing or two, the lessons, the values, the significance of the life of his own father, the father Imam al-Hujjah, how shameful it is for us. What happened was, this man Al-Mu'tamid sent 2 of the ugliest, meanest men to go and torture the Imam. He says, go and torture the Imam. When they arrived, after a while, they were sent back to the courts. And they said, we can't torture this man. Why? They said, how can we torture a man who during his days he is fasting and during the nights he is awake in prayer and ibadah lillah? How can we touch a man like this? And above that, these people became mu'mineen afterwards, they say. That the effect was so strong on them, when they see the vibrance, the illumination of this Imam, they are affected in such a way where they become not ugly anymore, but they become of these followers that then eventually ascend to Jannah. And this reminds me of a very significant point. And again, I will conclude with this lecture, because I do see the food is here and you guys are all eager to indulge in that. But this point that I want to make, I don't remember hearing it in any other sort of program. And I don't know when the next time it will be made. But brothers and sisters, the effect Ahlul Bayt have on people is remarkable. This reminds me of one incident, and this is the point I want to make. And after that, inshallah, we will finish. It reminds me of the incident in which Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salam, in the prison of Harun al-Rashid, Harun sends a lady, one of the most provocative ladies of the town, and he says, go in the cell of Imam Musa al-Kadhim, and after a while we will expose him and see what is going on. And so he sends this provocative lady in that cell. After a while, Harun comes and he says, come everybody, look, we're going to catch him red-handed. They open the cell, they find this once former provocative lady wearing hijab, doing sujood behind Imam Musa al-Kadhim. The effect of Ahlul Bayt by looking at them. What did those two men say? How can we torture a man who in his day is fasting and his night is busy in ibadah? They have that effect. And this reminds me of so many other examples that we can just bring forth, brothers and sisters. But inshallah we will finish with that. And with that, brothers and sisters, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of those people that when questioned about the knowledge, the wisdom they have for Ahlul Bayt, are ready to immediately respond saying, no, I don't love you blindly, sheep-like. I just follow whatever I follow. No, I love you for who you are, for where you came from, and for what purpose and message you will bring out forth for the ummah and generally for the whole entire world. Because brothers and sisters, as the Quran testifies, Rasulullah is a rahmah for the whole entire world, and likewise with Rasulullah, his Ahlul Bayt, because the Ahlul Bayt are known as the same light, innahum nurun wahid, the same illumination. So if Rasulullah is the rahmah to the world, then indeed, without a doubt, Imam Hassan al-Askari alayhi salam is also that rahmah in this world. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Ahsant, and thank you very much, Sayyid, for the wonderful lecture. Inshallah, we all can take lessons away from that. Brothers and sisters, I'd just like to remind you all once again that the MYC will be hosting the annual winter retreat, January 6th to the 8th, for ages 18 and up. And once again, you can find out further information at the MYC website, myconline.org. The MYC will be having some volunteer opportunities coming up as well, inshallah, so you can follow MYC social media on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And once again, you can check out the website, myconline.org, for further updates. Inshallah, we have refreshments in the back. We can all enjoy that. And inshallah, we hope to see you all joining us next week for another Friday night program. Let's conclude with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.